Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Marley Media podcast. I'm your host, Marlon McPherson, and in this episode today, we're going to be talking about passion versus business. If you don't know what this podcast is about, this is a music production related podcast. We talk about music production, audio production, and any related content to that topic or those topics. So if this is what you're into, you are in the right place. So I was watching TV and I came across this story. This was a program on TV, which is one of those court cases where they sue each other over money, right? Typically, this is like a small claims court, and they basically just show the whole thing on TV as a series. So I don't generally sit down and watch these things. I was actually in the middle of doing some work, but it caught my attention, this episode, because it was to do with music. Right? It had a music producer or a studio owner. So this guy was a recording studio owner suing a rap artist for unpaid studio time. Yeah. And this guy's bill was the studio owner. Let me get this right. The studio owner was suing the artist for £5,000, right? Yeah. £5,000 in unpaid studio time. Now, before I even get into the story, I'm thinking to myself, how on earth do you leave things as the studio owner or producer to get to that point where this guy owes you so much money and you didn't nip it in the bud from early on? Now, the problem is, as creatives, so whether you're a musician or you're a designer or, other type of creatives that collaborate together, sometimes creatives don't actually pay attention to the business side of things, and they don't treat the business as it's a business. They treat it like, you know what, this is just us having a bit of fun or us doing something we love. So therefore, it's awkward to talk about money. It's awkward to get paperwork done. These guys didn't have a written agreement. Now, my philosophy is this: if you're going to actually work with anyone that has an emotional connection to you, whether this is friends or family members, it's best to avoid those situations where possible. But obviously, you're going to inevitably have to do something with a friend or a family member. But you need to set the boundaries from early on, and you need to deal with things in a professional manner. You need to make sure that you have things done in a way that you have your bases covered in terms of a contract. It doesn't have to be some long sheet of paper with all kinds of terms and conditions, but you need to actually have, scope of work, whatever it is that you're doing, and how much needs to be paid and what the payment schedule is, and make sure that if you don't get paid, that this is not going to happen. But anyway, this guy now ended up suing the artist, and it turns out he was producing an album for him, and the rap artist was supposed to be in full-time employment, which apparently he says he was, until it got revealed in the court that he was only working part-time. So he said he didn't lie about it, because when he started, he had a full-time job, but he decided to stop working full-time and go part-time so he could focus fully on making his album, because he was that passionate about it. Now, you tell me, why on earth would you feel that it's okay to book someone's studio and rack up a bill, which is £200 a day? Each session was £200, right? So why would you want to rack up a bill for that much and not have any means of paying for it? You're not having enough income. What he said was, you know what, the album wasn't finished yet and he wasn't making money from it yet, so he wasn't able to pay. Now, whose fault is that? Is it the studio owner's fault that he doesn't have the means to pay for it? Why didn't he take responsibility for the fact that, you know what, I can't afford to do all these studio sessions, so maybe let's only limit it to whatever I can afford and try and get the rest of it done independently, get it done on his own somehow. Now, there's no excuse, because here's the thing, right? If you feel like you want to produce an album, right, it's very, very easy now to actually get your own equipment and have a home studio set up where you can do your own recordings. If you don't have your own beats or music or whatever, I don't think this guy was providing him with the music anyway, but you can lease tracks. You can buy tracks exclusively from countless nameless, countless producers, right, are online that's just putting out instrumental beats that you can get for affordable prices. Now, from all of this, this guy only paid, remember he was being sued for 5 grand here. He only paid about £500, which is a very small amount, a very small fraction of what the total bill was. Now, for £500, you can get a decent microphone and you can get an audio interface. And most likely, this guy has a computer already, right? You can get free music production software or affordable music production software that comes with multi-track recording and has you have plugins already in there that you can do your effects, you can do your tweaking, you might have instruments in there already too, or you can just download free VSTs that you can get to produce, sorry, to make to add additional sounds and whatnot. But if you already have a beat and you just need to track some vocals, you need to record vocals, you can just get a mic, your laptop or a desktop computer and an audio interface, and you're good to go. If you want to learn how to use the recording equipment and all of that, there's tons and tons of YouTube videos and free information out there in terms of online tutorials, whether this is written or in video format that you can do. Or you can just do a video course. You can do a paid course, which is going to cost you a fraction of what you would have done for the studio time, right? I actually even have a course getting started in music production. I have a series on YouTube, which is a free series I did a couple of years ago, which talks you through exactly what you need to just get started on a budget, as well as I do have a paid course that's over on futurestepsacademy.com. So this is a project that I'm working on where I'm going to have an online, well, it is there already. I'm going to have more and more content related to teaching and learning new skills. So if you really want to learn it, you can do it if you really want to do music production, if you really want to produce your album, there are ways you can do it, which is much cheaper than you go into a studio for 200 a day for all of, how many sessions did he do? I think he did all of 19 sessions. So he was awarded, in the end, he lost the case. The artist lost the case and he had to pay 3,800 as far as I remember, right? So I'm saying this to say that you don't need to live outside of your means. You don't need to feel like you have to go through all of that expense to produce music, right? And if you feel that you need to do that, make sure you have the means to do it. Make sure you have the money to pay for it. You don't go and use people's studio time and not want to pay for it. It's just bad business. Now, that being said, there's no obstacles in your way these days. Like I said, the barrier to entry is so low now. You don't even need the most expensive gear out there to get something sounding professional. A lot of the independent music that you hear out there, a lot of the songs that you hear out there are really, really good, really professional. They're independent artists, a lot of them, that doesn't have a big budget behind them. They don't have a big company or a production. They don't have a big label behind them helping them to produce what they produce. A lot of them are bedroom people. They record in their homes, right? And you get good quality provided you know how to be frugal, you know how to be, you know how to make things stretch, and you know how to rig things up, and you know how to put the right stuff together. You can get just as professional tracks at the end of the day done without having to go to a studio, right? It's good to go to a studio to get that extra polish, to get that environment to put you in that creative space, but you can create that environment for yourself as well, right? Especially if you're just starting out and you don't have the means to do it. Just try and be economical and do it in a way that you can afford to do it. So, moral of the story is live within your means. And hopefully this is a lesson. I guess that rapper, he's learned a life lesson because he still doesn't have a finished album, and he's going to have to pay that 3,800. And there's going to be a strained relationship there, right? And this is a lesson to those of you who run studios or you operate some kind of business, whether you give out you take on mixing projects or mastering projects, or whether you actually have a physical studio where people come into and they want to record, obviously make sure that you have contracts in place and you have agreements in place and you do things properly like a real business, because you are a real business. As an artist, you are a real business. You can be passionate about what you do, but if at some point you want to release music and you want to make money from it, it is a business. So you need to treat it as such and make sure whatever you do, you have your paperwork in check. So I think that's me done with this podcast. Thank you for listening. And those of you who are viewing this on YouTube as well, go ahead and check the links, the notes, so you can get the links to the download of this podcast. And leave comments if you have any thoughts on today's topic. And until next time, I'll catch you in the next episode. Take care.